We're very, very excited to be here this afternoon with Nick Garrison, who probably most people in Seattle know as Mr. Actor for his various roles over the years, ranging from the late lamented Empty Space, where he played lots of interesting characters in lots of interesting shows, to Rebar and Brown Derby shows, and then of course his, I guess you could say, his grand triumph as Hedwig in Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which he subsequently played in Chicago and London.
Chicago and toured all over England, actually, and London, all around England, and San Francisco as well.
And twice here in Seattle.
Yes.
And hopefully.
And twice in Chicago. Yes.
And hopefully someday again.
Yeah.
Well,
they're doing it this month. They're like doing this like benefit performance that I have no idea. I mean, they keep these.
I think they've done it before.
These upstarts from like Tacoma or something keep
coming because
up and
obviously Hedwig is a huge.
Oh, God bless them. I wish everybody would keep doing it.
I think it will last. It's part of our.
I kind of would like to go see that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because I think we're like in tech or something. But
yeah, that's Sunday at Gay Pride.
I'd love to go see it.
And then, of course, Nick has grown and grown to become a huge superstar in Seattle, playing on the big stages, and becoming an equity actor.
Oh yeah, years ago.
And now he is sort of changing.
I was equity when I did Hedwig. I was illegally
Quit
doing
saying
that.
things we have to edit out.
Oh no, they know that. They were fine with it. Equity was fine with it.
Because it's and now he is directing, which you've done before, but not on this
scale. Like, not that this is a huge, but not on this level.
Right. For Strawberry Theater Workshop, aka Straw Shop.
Yes.
He is directing Carol Churchill's amazing play Cloud9 at the Erickson Theater off Broadway, and it starts July 7th and runs through August 6th. And we encourage you to get your tickets at strawshop.org.
That's right. Yes.
And
brown paper tickets.
Brown paper tickets.
Brown paper tickets. Yes.
And I'll let you tell the story on how, because you were originally cast in the show.
I was, yes. Greg Carter, who is a lovely man and runs Strawberry Theater Workshop, it's his baby. I had worked with him last year in the Laramie Project, which he directed, and we had never really met before that. We kind of knew of each other, but I think we might have met, but so that was our first kind of acquaintance working together, and we really hit it off. And then he was looking for a project for this summer. Something fun. He really wanted a comedy and wanted some, and he himself freely admits that he's not all that adept at comedy himself. I mean, he's a funny guy. He's got a very funny dry sense of humor, but that's not it. So he came to Sarah Rudinoff and myself and Ian Bell kind of separately, and then brought us all together, asking us for ideas to bring to the table. And the three of us, being dear friends for years, all kind of talked it over and met for months and kind of talked about ideas of what we might do. For a while, Sarah and I just met. Sarah and I talked about maybe doing an Old Coward play, not Private Lives, but something in that, we talked about different things that the three of us might work on. And one night we had met earlier that day, and Ian and I and his partner Andy had gone to dinner, and I was just sitting there and I just thought, Cloud9. And it just jumped in my head. It was a play I read when I was like 13 years old, 12 or 13 years old. It was the first Carol Churchill thing I'd ever come across, and it blew my mind. And that play's just been in my head ever since. And he immediately was like, "Oh my God, it's got to be Cloud9." We called Sarah right then, and we said, "Oh yeah, Cloud." She's like, "I'll pick it up. I have it on my shelf." And we brought it to Greg. Greg was a little dubious at first because he knew the play, but he had seen a bunch of kind of bad student productions. He teaches at Cornish. And I think often it's done by students. I think it hasn't been done much professionally in Seattle, at least in years and years and years. Balogun did, yes. But I mean, there hasn't been like a kind of a large professional production in
quite a while,
25 years, something like that. So, but it's often done by students and young people and
gay folks.
Exactly, and that kind of thing. And I didn't even know about the Balogun production, which I wish had I known about it, I'm sure I would have been there. I think I might have been out of town, but. But then when we kind of started talking about our feelings about it and our concepts, kind of what we felt about the play, he got really excited, and we were all cast in it at first, and then Alison Narver was going to direct it, and had to pull out, and then David Bennett was going to direct it, and had to pull out at the last minute, and we had kind of an emergency meeting, and I called Greg, like the night before and said, "Listen, what do you think of this?" But I just came to the meeting and said, we were like at McMinimans over on Queen Anne, and I just said, "Listen, what if I drop out as the cast?" Which also freed up an equity contract, which was good because I wanted Gretchen Critch in it. And I was like, if I got to direct, I knew who the cast I wanted. And I said, what if I dropped out of the cast and freed up a contract and directed it? And to my surprise, everybody just said yes, absolutely right away. And there was like no because I know because of how long we've been spending talking about it, I think they felt more comfortable with me than bringing in a completely new person to the project. And it's worked out great. It's worked out really great. It hasn't been, Allison warned me of several. She's like, you'll have fun, but I warn you about directing all your best friends, because really it's a cast of like some of my closest friends. And
because how do you tell your best friend? How do you say, Sarah? That really. That
although I've directed Sarah before several times,
bit.
and she takes direction beautifully. Like Sarah's the farthest thing from a diva, and like is a natural born actress, and so she's great. And Ian, he knows this. If anybody, Ian was the person I was worried about most, because we're like brothers, and when we do the Brown Derbies, we butt heads and we fight, but like we've had an amazing time, beautiful time together, and he's another natural born wonderful actor.
Well, you've worked with every single person in the cast.
I've worked with everybody except James Cowan, but I've known James Cowan for years and years, and he's been one of my favorite actors in Seattle, and he moved away for a long time and has just recently moved back.
And he took over the role that you were going to play.
Betty, yes,
the lead
Betty
role.
Edward.
You could say she's the lead.
She's the leading lady. I would
certainly
say,
of
yes.
Act One.
In the company of actors of Act One, she's the leading lady, and yes, that was the role that I was going to play. And
because Scott Shoemaker's from Brown Derby,
Shoemaker's a dear friend of
Love.
mine. Imogen Love, I've known since I was 19 years old.
You were with Basil Harris. You were in the Pink.
Basil Harris, I've done.
Pink Lagoon.
I was in Pink Lagoon. Well, he wrote Pink Lagoon with Christiani, and we were also in Vera Wild together, Basil and I, and a number of things. And of course, I've known Ian and Sarah forever. And Gretchen, I've known since New York. I met Gretchen in New York. We did a play together in New York. And then she moved out here several years later, and we did a horrible play at Empty Space called Limitations of Life. It was a terrible production about the Lana Turner film Imitation of Life, and Douglas Sirk, and there was wonderful things.
That's
about
so
it.
long ago.
Gretchen and I were fabulous, and it was a great cast. Sarah was in that, and Bama Roger, and a lot that production led to a lot of wonderful things. But yeah. And Straw Shop is known for doing great work.
Great, and a lot of gay. Centric theater.
God bless him, because Greg's not gay, and there's no reason why he should, but he feels
And sadly, there's no longer a gay theater in Seattle.
I think he feels a responsibility in that respect.
What was the name of the gay theater?
Alice B, which was a lovely theater company, and really missed.
Yeah. And they've kind of taken up that mantle, because last year they did 2 outstanding productions.
Breaking the Code and Laramie Project.
Breaking the Code.
God bless him. He's really great. He has a great kind of.
And then
he has a great social conscience. Greg Carter does.
Well, I guess we should sort of briefly synopsis. What is Cloud 9 about?
Oh my God, it's a huge play.
Well, in a nutshell, I mean, it's
in a nutshell, it's about a family. The first act takes place in 1880 in Africa. It's a Victorian family living in colonial Africa, and it's about the trials and tribulations of this family and their some of their friends and colleagues, and it's just a huge kind of knockabout sex farce.
But there's also underlying.
Oh, it's deep. It's
very deep.
A lot of deep. I mean, but basically, this first act takes place in 1880 Africa with this Victorian family, and then it moves. The second act takes place in late 70s, early 80s, like 1979, 78 in London.
Sort of on the cusp of AIDS, actually.
Right at the the middle of the the feminist movement, in the middle of the gay rights movement, and it's only 25 years later for the characters. So we've moved like 100 years forward in time, but the characters have only aged 25 years, and it picks up where their lives.
It's
have
just
left
25
off.
years later for them, but it's 100 years later.
But they're in contemporary London.
So it's just Carol Church is playing. She's playing around with time.
She's playing,
and then she plays around with both gender and sexuality because of the casting. So explain the casting.
Yes, that's the other thing about the play is in the first act. We have this Victorian family, but the mother, the matriarch of the family, Betty, is played by a man. And the servant, Joshua, who's a black servant, is played by a white actor. The son, Edward, the 9-year-old son, is played by a woman. And so there's all this kind of cross-gender casting for very kind of political and pointed reasons that Carol Churchill talks at length about in her writings about the play. And then in the second act, everybody's kind of in their normal gender, except for Kathy, the little girl named Kathy, who's played by a man. There is some leeway in the casting in terms of how you double it, because there was a different, joint stock company who originally did the show did it one way, and then they changed it when they went to the Royal Shakespeare Company, and it was changed again when it went to Tommy Tune directed the original production in New York in 1981. and that was a different casting. So, but for the most part, it's it adheres to this idea of she's very specific about having a man play a woman.
And a white man play the black character, and that character wants to be white.
Exactly.
So it's all very deliberate.
So we've made casting decisions. We went back and forth on some of the casting decisions, depending on, but I ended up making the casting decisions based very dramaturgically, based on what I thought the play needed for For example, with the father in the first act, played by Ian Bell, Clive, becomes the little girl in the second act because we kind of lose a patriarch. We lose the patriarchy and we lose the father figure in the second act. And I thought it would be
Isn't that traditional, though?
No, they did that in one of the English productions, but in the New York production, Clive became Edward. So it's been different from production to production, and people play with it depending on. I think a lot of times people play with it more depending on the actor they have and what they think their strengths will be. For me, it was more about what we need the play to say.
So the productions I've seen, the black character Joshua, that actor then plays the little girl Kathy.
That often happens. And not in this, but in this production, Clive, the father, becomes Kathy, which was
Well, that's good because then it's fresh for people that have seen it before or read it before.
It has different resonance. Different casting has different resonances, and then Joshua, who is played by Scott Shoemaker, the servant, becomes Jerry, the sort of sexually free boyfriend of Edward, who is kind of Edward, the son, is having a relationship with this guy Jerry,
Well, it's interesting that I did my little research before the show because I haven't seen this show in quite a long time. But the first act is about the fact that in Victorian times, it was a male-dominated society, so if father rules the roost, all the men rule the roost. Women don't have any power, obviously, and gays and lesbians don't exist. Whereas in the second act, heterosexual white men don't have much power anymore.
They've been kind of pushed to the periphery, and it's about the gays and the women, kind of,
And it's very it's a gay play.
I would
gay and lesbian.
It's a queer play.
That's a good word.
It's a queer play for sure. It's everything. It's everything but the middle.
But other audiences can enjoy. I mean, obviously, far right people aren't going to enjoy this play. But
absolutely, you know what the play is about. The play at its core is about sex and longing and desire and how afraid we are of all that's under here and the colonial repression and all that stuff. It's all just a metaphor for fear of our deepest kind of desires, our deepest heart, what our heart deeply wants, and how often we cover that up, and so it's universal. The thing about the casting for this show is that clearly I cast people I know and am fond of, and people would. I'm sure from an outside eye, people who know us would think, oh, it's just like some kind of nepotism, but it wasn't that at all. I really wanted to cast the smartest, funniest people I knew, and
they just happened to be your friends.
And they just happened to be my friends, and they all just happened to also get it. They just get the joke. And I wanted that.
Well, it's basically a Brown Derby production. It just has production values and a budget.
Ian keeps saying that. That's absolutely not true. That's Ian's baby. And as much as I love the Brown Derbies, I don't think there's anything that will smack of Brown Derby about this production. Although maybe, there's a little bit of Brown Derby in there. There's some cheap jokes in there and stuff but I love the Brown Derbies, but it's
it's a totally different.
I wouldn't want to wrestle that away from Ian. That's Ian's baby.
And are any other Brown Derbyites going, well, how come I wasn't cast? Is Freddie crying somewhere because you did
I don't think so.
Because Freddie's actually a really good actor.
Oh, Freddie's great. Freddie went to school at Cornish. Freddie studied theater.
Yeah, you think, oh, well, it's just a DJ and he's just being silly, but he's really quite good.
He's a wonderful actor, and more than that, he's a fabulous writer. He's a really wonderful playwright. And there's a lot of... Freddie has a lot of skills and talents that people don't know about. But yeah, he's a wonderful actor and writer, and he studied theater. Yeah.
And Scott's kind of more of a newcomer to Brown Derby, and it's like he's an amazingly good actor.
Yeah, he's a fabulous actor, and he also studied theater, and is a brilliant musician as well. Wonderful musician, has an incredible band, and is actually writing some of the music for this production, which is great. Rob is doing sound, and Rob's writing some music.
Because you've got a lot of people in here with musical talent in this show, so you could almost turn it into a musical.
Well, Rob and I have been talking about that. We're trying to get music in wherever we can. This play actually has quite a lot of music, so
it does.
Yeah.
And speaking of music, we'll segue into, because we need to give a brief plug to
Sure.
the Love Markets.
Oh, yes.
Because Mr. Garrison wears a lot of hats. And one of his hats involves his group, the Love Markets, which he formed with Angie, the wonderful Angie Louise.
Yes, right.
And Rob Whitmer, and we'll mention everybody. Dave Marriott, Chris Monroe, and Dave Pascal.
That's right.
And tell us briefly what the Love Markets.
So Love Markets is something we formed while we were on tour with Cabaret, actually. Angie and I, again, another person who I've known for a million years. I did a show with her when I was like 19, a million years ago, at Candor and Ebb Review.
2 years ago.
Which was just 2 years ago. But I've known her for a long, long time. And we did a Candor and Ebb Review years and years ago, and have been in love with each other ever since. But we got cast in Cabaret, and during Cabaret, we both have a huge love and kind of voracious, we just dig the Weimar period so much, and we talked a lot about that, and we're just throwing a bunch of material around. We got asked to do this town hall gig, and so we did that and kind of threw a bunch of Weimar stuff together, and we enjoyed playing together so much with this band, with this group, that we just started playing a lot, and then the Love Markets came out of it. And that was a name I came up with just because there's a lot of the songs that we were singing talked about the Love Market, which is, the prostitution ring. In Berlin, in Weimar, Berlin. Thank Marlene Dietrich. Thank Cabaret. Thank Cabaret.
Right.
That era, that kind of thing. We started out doing all Weimar stuff, and a lot of it was in German at first, and some in French and stuff. And then we've moved from that now, and the band's repertoire now we think of ourselves more as a Weimar-inspired band. But we do a lot of stuff. Like we're just adding a new gig. We have a gig coming up on the 8th of July at ACT
Which
Theater.
is the day after you open.
The day after we open,
Are
which
you
is
crazy?
Craziness. Believe me, it's just insane. It's insanity, but that's how.
I was there last year when you performed at the Bullet,
Oh,
and
great.
it was full.
Oh, it's full, yeah. So we're hoping, we're doing 2 gigs this summer. We're doing one in July and one in August, and we're hoping they're both full because we did really well last time.
And it was interesting because a lot of it was the standard base for
There's
ACT, and I was like older people.
Yeah, but they
And I
really
was
had a
like,
great time.
Are they going to get, because they perform in slips, we should say.
Yes.
The entire
band
is
is
in
in
slips, and they loved it.
They had a great time, and we got some. I guess they got a lot of responses saying they wanted us back, and so we were really happy to go back there. And
Because you're so wholesome.
it's not it's not our usual crowd, but I have to say that show was so much fun, and so we're really looking forward to it. And we're adding a bunch of new stuff. I'm going to be doing a song, "Everything Must Change," which is a kind of a civil rights anthem that Nina Simone used to do, and we're doing. We do.
Well, it's sort of like Dietrich herself when she went into her famous cabaret
We have all the
career.
flowers gone, and I think it's a state of mind as opposed to like a specific
Right.
like we're doing Weimar material, because I never wanted to do just that anyway.
Well, that gets.
There's only so much you can do.
You're right.
And it's, believe me, there's a wealth of material there, as you know, and it's amazing
But
stuff.
then it becomes too, I think, fringy and too.
And we try to do that material in a modern way too. Not that but they were pretty modern when they did it,
Right.
and that stuff is pretty edgy. But it's like we try to, it's a more of a. I would say the Love Markets is more of a state of mind than anything specific.
That should be your T-shirt.
Love Markets is a state of mind. I don't know. I hope
Except-
Angie would agree with that. Angie's a big part of the band because she writes most of our original material. So.
She's insanely talented, and
She's
Rob
insanely
Whitmer is
talented.
ridiculously.
And-
all the awesome guys, they seem to be everywhere.
They're so great, and also dear friends of ours, and I would work with in a heartbeat any of those awesome guys.
We did a love letter to, our writer Aiden did a love letter to you, and more specifically to Charlotte von Malsdorf,
Oh yes.
which you're finally getting to play.
Yes.
In to play in I Am My Own Wife.
I Am My Own Wife, which I
at
can't
Seattle
believe.
Rep next
In
February.
Yes, February. So it's it's like a busy year. So yeah, I'm doing this, and then I'm doing Inherit the Wind right after this, which is with Strawberry Theater Workshop.
Oh, you
as
are
well.
going to do that.
I'm
Awesome.
going to be in Inherit the Wind, and then right after that go into Cinderella, and then right after Cinderella, like before we even close Cinderella, we go to rehearsal for I Am My Own Wife. So it's
So you're booked for like the next year.
It's booked for a while. It's a good amount of work. I cannot complain. But
So
I Am
no
My Own
working at
Wife-
Starbucks. Yay.
We had that was going to be at Empty Space. That was kind of the season that Empty Space closed. We were lined up to do that, and then that fell through. And then we were lined up to do it at the Rep, and there was a clerical error, and they ended up giving the rights to Arts West, and the Rep both had the rights at
Where
the same time.
another fabulous actor played the role.
And yes, Nick DeSantis, who I love, is a dear friend, so the Rep backed down, and we weren't able to do it at the time. So when it came up this year. Jerry came to me several months ago and asked me if I wanted to do it again. It was just like this great surprise because I never thought I kind of given up on doing it. In Chicago. I talked to some people about doing it back there last time I was.
And we
in
should
Chicago.
point out that the play is a one Man show where you play a transgendered German woman
who survived, the Nazis and the Communist Party in Germany, and kind of survived a lot of things, and also happened to be a Stasi spy, and you find out a lot of things about this true person, Charlotte von Malstorff. I also play if I play like 50 characters in the play, it's
a big tour de force.
It's a huge play, but it's really beautifully written. Doug Wright and wrote this.
Won the Pulitzer and the Tony and
Jefferson Mays, who is one of my favorite actors, played it, and so it's going to be a great challenge. And Jerry Manning is directing it, which is great. I'm really excited. He knows, he and Doug are really dear friends, and he knows the play really well, and so I'm excited to.
That's going to be a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of hard work. Jen Ziles designing it. It's a great team. Rob is doing the sound for that, so it's a great team.
And you're starting memorizing now.
It's funny because Allison Narver was originally directing it, and we had worked on it. We kind of been talking about it for so long, and so going back and revisiting it, I haven't. I've been in Cloud 9 world, but we're revisiting it, rereading it, and everything is daunting. So I was like, oh,
what have I got myself
this play again. So yeah, it's going to be a big chunk of work, but I think it'll be fun.
Something that always just kind of bothered me a little bit is the fact that, at least in Seattle right now or lately, there isn't really a lot of arts content to gay pride celebrations in Seattle. And how do you feel about that? And what do you think we could do about that for the future?
A lot. I mean,
it's all about booze, which is fine.
And dancing and house music.
There's drag queens, house music.
And drag queens. I think that's really smart. The funny thing, I'm a little sad because Jerry Manning and I had been talking for months and months about doing a week-long gay play reading series at the end of this month, and his schedule and mine just conspired to make it really kind of not possible, and we had to postpone that. And I'm hoping maybe it will happen maybe later this summer. We'll still do it.
Well, maybe instead of having, and I think perhaps in Vancouver they used to do that, where they had like a gay arts festival at one time, and then the Pride.
But they kind of mirrored maybe Pride, or maybe not. Maybe I don't know if it,
There's so much going on. It's hard to schedule.
That's the thing, is will people come? There's so much going on during Pride that it's like, well, if you're doing a gay play reading series at the Seattle Rep, who's going to go down there when they could be
But the problem is, of course, that not everybody likes going to beer gardens and.
Well, here's the thing. I'm getting older, and none my friend, I'm slowed down a lot. I don't want to go to a beer garden. But yeah, I'm always a little.
Maybe.
I'm always a little weirded out that gay pride is all about getting drunk. And
maybe we'll work on that for next year.
Although, you know what? I never have anything against getting drunk and hanging out.
No, I mean, that's fine, but there seems like there should be options for it. So it's not all booze.
So keep an eye out for this gay play reading festival, because I think we'll still do it. And we're going to do, boys in the band and, some of the things you would expect, but some other things that are not quite so expected.
We'll do the women and not tell the rights holders. Right. They get a little touchy-poo about which is stupid, because it's basically drag queens anyway.
I know. Absolutely.
A lot of times I think in the our world that it does focus a little too much sometimes on bears and drag queens and disco music, and that's fine. It's a lot of fun. That's part of our culture, but there's more to us than
it's
just...
a little bit like what Cloud 9 is about, is this idea of when you're kind of new to something, i.e. your sexuality and gender and relationships, you tend to focus on what is this naughty part, and then things that are a little bit superficial, and it takes anybody in their life, any one of us, a while to get to what's really going on. And I think that's kind of true of the gay rights movement too. It's still kind of in its infancy in some ways, or maybe it's lumbering into its teen years, and we're all still a little and it's getting there. I mean, we're at some point we'll get to a place where a lot of the stuff that's I find a little superficial and silly is maybe an afterthought, and we get to talk about things that are a little more important.
And the thing is, when you talk about or do art and things, afterwards you go and have a beer
and hopefully talk about it.
And then get drunk. So
that's the benefit of doing Cloud 9 here instead of doing it somewhere like the Rep or something. God bless the Rep. I mean, I love the Rep, and Solo is my favorite place to go for a drink afterwards. I don't think I ever pay for a drink at Solo, but. You come to this theater and you see this show, and then there's a million fabulous bars around here that you can go and
in the
sit
heart
and
of the
hang out.
hill.
The last thing you're going to do is go home right after seeing a play right here. You're going to come see Cloud 9, and you're going to go. And it's an event theater that you go to see Cloud 9, then you go out. It's an evening, and I want people to have an event when they come to this show. Hi, I'm Nick Garrison, and I'm happy to be here on Seattle Gay Scene. And please come and see Cloud 9 at the Erickson Theater You can get your tickets through Brown Paper Tickets or strawshop.org. We'd love to see you. Come make a night of it up on the hill with us.